What's happening, everybody? We're back, and don't worry, today we've got an all-new preview of All-American for you guys. And today we'll be breaking down what to expect for episode 12 and what my hopes are for this one. But of course, as always, before I get into what my hopes are for this next episode, you guys are more than welcome to comment your thoughts on what you would like to see in this upcoming episode and, what you think may actually happen. So, all right, without any further ado, let's hop into today's preview, because there's definitely some things we've got to go through, and it should be a good one. So, we'll be starting out this episode a little bit differently than we normally do. Instead of covering the synopsis for this next episode first, let's have a look at the promo together, and then we'll get into the synopsis a little bit later on. So, without any further ado, let's have a look at this preview. It's definitely a good one. Not a whole lot in it, but let's get into it just to see what we might have to expect. So, here we go.
We have the copy of the shooting of Tamika Pratt.
How did they get the body cam footage?
I gave it to them.
Our justice system is fundamentally broken.
We can't stop fighting. This is our lives we're talking about.
If we do nothing, then when's it gonna stop?
Okay, so let's move back to the start of this promo now that we've kind of seen it, wherein we find out that the body cam footage of Tamika's murder has officially been released, and we find out that Liv did it, so obviously not really a surprise there, as we saw at the end of the last episode that Liv broke into Laura's laptop and stole the footage, but anyways, in terms of what this whole situation might mean in this next episode and for possibly the duration of the season, there's definitely some big implications here. Number one being, even though it seemed like a lot of people liked the fact that Olivia decided to release the footage, I feel like the way she went about doing it was wrong in so many ways. And I say this because I feel like Liv putting the whole investigation in jeopardy, you could say, since Laura hadn't completed it. And that puts her at a disadvantage within the case, but the thing about what Liv did is that it could end up doing more damage than good, I feel like, and it could affect the future trial of the officers involved in the murder if they're charged, and it could taint the jury pool, and all in all, it could make getting justice for Tamika even harder than it already would have been with her being a black woman, so another thing to consider, I think, is that, for me, I don't think official police body cam footage like that should ever be released until it's shown to the victim's family, but that way they can have some input on what they want to be released out to the public, but all in all, looking at the big picture, obviously Olivia's intentions were good and she did it hoping that things would start to turn around, but I don't think it changes the fact that I don't think it changes the fact that she could very well get arrested for stealing the footage, who knows, but just betraying Laura's trust and risking Laura's job and jeopardizing the investigation, but I think we've seen the writers let Olivia get away with a lot of messed up stuff, and I just think that if they try to make what she did seem like a good thing when she risked getting Tamika the justice she deserves, then it would just be wrong. So overall, let me know what you guys think about this whole situation, and I'll try my best to get back to you. All conversation is welcome when it comes to this topic, so feel free to chime in and with your opinions, and let's just keep it civil as always, so okay, moving on now. The rest of the promo talks about the justice system and how something needs to happen in order to get through all the nonsense we've seen. And obviously this indicates that the fight for justice will once again be a big part of this next episode. And I'm looking forward to seeing how it affects people in our real world, realizing that this has been a never-ending problem that needs correction, So in terms of this episode, as we mentioned previously, it'll definitely be interesting to see how Olivia releasing the footage will affect how Tamika gets the justice she deserves. But, I think obviously this topic is so much more than just finding out what happens in the show, because something needs to happen in our real world to make sure that blacks get the justice they deserve, because, all lives matter, and, obviously there's big implications here, so as I mentioned, with more than just this episode, so it'll definitely be interesting for sure. Okay, moving on to some things that we saw in the promo. Of course, we didn't actually hear anything in the promo that might indicate something, but we'll just go over the things we saw that might indicate what happens in this next episode. So, I'd like to start with seeing what looks like Spencer and Jordan hugging, and to be honest with all of you, I'm not 100% sure what this might indicate, A couple of things that would come to mind would be maybe something happens with Olivia or Laura or Billy, and Spencer is there for him in a tough time. Kind of like we talked about before, who knows if we see Olivia get arrested or something like that for deciding to release the footage, which could be a reason for Jordan to be upset. But in terms of Billy and Laura, I'm not really sure what could happen to them that would lead to a moment like this, So anyways, moving on now to some other reasons why they could be sharing this moment. Could have something to do with Jordan's football career, maybe we'll find out something in that regard in the next episode, but I'm not really sure what, though, to be honest with all of you. So outside of that, I'm not 100% sure what this might indicate, but just let me know what you guys think, though, because this could turn out to be a big moment in the episode. It'll definitely be interesting. It could not be interesting at all, so I guess we'll just have to wait and see, and hope for the best for whatever's going on there. So all right, moving on now. Next is definitely a big part of this promo, wherein we see Billy, and it looks like he's got some brain scan info behind him, and this is definitely big because we know that it seems definite that he could have some sort of problem, considering the fact that he doesn't recall he and Principal Carter's past. And like I said in my episode 11 breakdown, it seems like Billy was the one to do all those things in the past, but anyways, this will definitely be interesting because I think this will start to give us some insight on what's really going on with him, and I think the big question is whether or not this will affect him in the long run. So it's definitely going to be interesting, and let me know what you guys think. Does Billy have some sort of memory problem, His brain is obviously enduring something, so or could we see a rare possibility wherein he's the one that's telling the truth about the past, Like I said, I don't really think that'll be the case, but just let me know what you guys think, and I'll try my best to get back to you, as always. So, all right, and lastly, it looks like we're probably going to get back into the football side of things in this episode, and, hopefully Spencer's able to keep things rolling, and hopefully he's able to get some more college recruiters to come pay him a visit, in the event that he doesn't want to commit to TNT. And, of course, in the last episode, we saw him tell Coach Barnum that he's going to go the way he is or not at all. And, Coach Barnum's going to consider it. But, in the event that TNT doesn't turn out to be the place for him, hopefully he's able to get some visits and hopefully some offers from other recruiters, So, all right, in terms of the team, they're still obviously in a must-win situation, and hopefully they're able to keep things rolling after we saw them kind of dominate their homecoming game. And I think they'll be able to. It's just a matter of making the right plays and, coming together as one unit, as we've mentioned before. So, all in all, that's all I have for that. But just let me know what your guys' hopes are for the football team, and do you think they'll win their next game? And in terms of the college recruiting game, do you think Spencer will commit to TNT, which, of course, in case you don't remember, was the school that came to visit him in the last episode? But, or do you think he could get an offer from another school and consider that, So it'll definitely be interesting, and then I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But, anyways, moving on now. All in all, that's all we've got for the promo, but, moving on now to the synopsis side of things, let's kind of read through it and then break it all down, So without any further ado, let's hop right into this synopsis. So, when the truth comes out, Laura is furious and is left to face the consequences. Seeing everything going on, Spencer doesn't want to sit on the sidelines and ask something of his teammates that could jeopardize the rest of their season. Billy deals with something personal by himself, but after a conversation with his dad, he realized what has really happened. Meanwhile, Simone is worried about Jordan and turns to his friends for help. Layla, Asher, Coop, and Grace will also appear in this episode. Okay, so to start things out, let's talk Laura a little bit. So, of course, the first thing that comes to mind is that, of course, she's going to be upset with what's happening regarding the body cam footage being released. And, there's a few different reasons for it. Number one, as we kind of talked about earlier, the case hadn't been completed to that point. So it's almost like, in a way, the footage being released at the time doesn't give the full picture, in her opinion, possibly. That could be a way of seeing it. So, it kind of makes you wonder if she would have released the footage at some point when she thought it could be released. And instead, we saw her own daughter decide that it would be best to release it at that moment, which could lead to Laura losing her position as the DA. And it could make things really interesting regarding the relationship between Olivia and Laura. So that's definitely a reason why she has a right to be upset, but let me know what you guys think about this, though. I'm always interested in hearing from you also. Number two, this reason gets a little more into the relationship of Laura and Olivia, and now this is definitely interesting because in terms of Laura being furious about what's happening, it'll be interesting to see how her relationship with Liv takes form from this point on. And the thing for me is that I still think she's going to protect Liv and ensure that nothing happens to her because, after all, it's her daughter. But I think in terms of the fallouts we could see between them, there will most likely be a lot of tension between the two, especially if it turns out that Laura does lose her job regarding this matter. And, I think in terms of the trust they've built, it'll be really hard for them to get that back, considering the fact that Olivia broke into her laptop and stole the footage, and the thing for me is that I don't know if I see Laura getting fired over this because she really doesn't have anything that she did wrong, I feel like, when you think about it, so it's definitely interesting, and I'm curious to see how this whole situation affects the relationship between Laura and Olivia, and I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens. It's definitely going to be interesting, and until they come to a resolution, Laura and Olivia are really going to have to get through seeing one another, so, and just in terms of the whole Laura possibly losing her job over this, like I said, she didn't really do anything wrong. She couldn't help the fact that Liv broke into her laptop and stole that footage, so we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Let me know what you guys think, though. I'm definitely interested in hearing what you guys think about this. And like I said, I think if it turns out that Laura does lose her job, then there's definitely going to be something, to some things going on between her and Liv. So all right, moving on now to the next part of the synopsis, and it reads that seeing everything going on, Spencer doesn't want to sit on the sidelines and ask something of his teammates that could jeopardize the rest of their season. Now, this part is definitely eye-opening for me, and I think that the bulk of this decision has something to do with the justice movement, and I say this because of the fact that he asks his teammates for something that could jeopardize their season, so for starters, I would just like to say that it looks like we may see some more football in this episode, as I mentioned earlier. But in terms of this part of the synopsis, I'm not really 100% sure what Spencer proposes to his teammates that could jeopardize their season. It might have something to do with forfeiting the game or something like that, which obviously would prevent them from making the playoffs. But in terms of why Spencer might feel that way, I'm not really 100% sure what to think of it, mostly just because if it does have something to do with the Black Lives Matter movement and the fight for justice, then we don't really have a lot of context on just what's going to happen, It could have something to do with Olivia releasing the footage, so, I guess we'll just have to wait and see, and, could this proposition jeopardize the football team, and, if so, could we see their playoff hopes go down the drain? It's definitely going to be interesting. So we'll just have to keep an eye out for it and, hope for the best. Hopefully Crenshaw is able to make the playoffs and, hopefully they're able to get justice once and for all. So, okay, so now that we've covered that, the next part of this synopsis that I'd kind of like to talk about is the fact that Billy deals with something personal by himself, but after a conversation with his dad, he realized what has really happened. So in terms of first impressions, as we talked about earlier, in the promo, we saw Billy, and it looked like he had a brain scan just from what we saw, and I'm guessing that's what this is focusing on. But anyways, in terms of the synopsis, I feel like the first part of this is saying that we might not really find out anything in terms of what's wrong with his brain. Or, well, I shouldn't say that. It might just mean that, like, it doesn't tell us anything about why he's not remembering his past, you know what I mean? But based on the conversation with his dad, I think that will start to kind of put the pieces together for Billy, and I'm really hoping we see a scenario wherein Billy finds out the reason for his apparent memory problems and has a way to try and put a resolution to it, and I could definitely be wrong, but just let me know what you guys think about this whole scenario, and that's just about all I've got for that, but once we get to the episode, I think, we'll have some more context, and it'll definitely be worth listening to, because it could be good or bad, so I guess we'll just have to wait and see, and, hope for the best for Billy, because, it's definitely important, with everything the Baker family has going on, obviously we talked about Laura and Olivia's situation, Billy's got these problems going on with his brain, and, obviously Jordan's got a lot going on with the marriage and not being able to play football, so, all right, let's move on now to the next, kind of the final talking point in this synopsis, and this one is definitely interesting in terms of what's happening with Jordan, and depending on what the situation may be, how they're going to help him get help, so we hear that Simone is worried about Jordan and turns to his friends for help, and now there's definitely a few things to take into account here with this situation, and for the most part, there are definitely things to consider, so let's hop into them here. First of all, I think one thing that we definitely have to consider is the state of Jordan and Simone within losing their marriage and trying to overcome that. And now I think part of this definitely has something to do with what may be going on with Jordan, and it could definitely be a big reason as to why he needs help from his friends, but now moving on to other things, I don't really think this reason in terms of Simone being concerned with him has anything to do with football, and because I say this because as we saw in the last episode, he was able to overcome that feeling of being sorry for himself, and he apologized to Asher and JJ for being a jerk and ignoring what they were trying to do by saying that, or ignoring what they were trying to do, and he corrected that by saying he's going to be there for them and for the whole team from the sidelines, which hopefully helps them in terms of making a run at state, but anyways, going back to the marriage between Jordan and Simone, I feel like that may definitely have something to do with Simone being concerned for him, and I definitely could be wrong, as I kind of said, but let me know what you guys think. All in all, it's definitely going to be really interesting, and it'll, will they fight back to get their marriage? I think it's definitely something to consider, but I think if it is the reason why Simone seems to be concerned for him, then, hopefully they're able to just, stay with one another, because they can stay together, they're not married, but, they're still as committed to one another, so, all right, moving on, and, with that thought, I think we've once again reached the point in this episode where I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say, and as always, feel free to just go for it in terms of anything we talked about here today, and as always, let's just keep it civil, so with that thought, feel free to like and share this video, and also feel free to check out all my other videos as well, where we break down All-American, and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I'd really appreciate it. anybody that enjoys All American will enjoy this channel. I can guarantee it. So let your friends know, let your family know, and let's keep this squad rolling. So also, before I forget, feel free to check out my Instagram page. The link is in the description, where I generally try to update you guys whenever we'll have a new video dropping, as well as if we may experience any delays or cancellations, So feel free to check that out. And with that thought, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Feel free to voice your opinions. Let me know if you guys thought I may have missed anything and I may make another video for it. Or if there's just anything you want to see in general from me, feel free to let me know. I'm always interested in hearing what you guys want to see so that, we can have some nice discussions about it. So, all right. With that thought, we'll see you in the next one. Have a great day, and bye.